When someone tries to hurt an INFJ, the action almost always backfires, not because INFJs retaliate in obvious or destructive ways, but because of the unique combination of insight, integrity, and inner strength that defines them. Their response to pain is not like that of most people, and this difference is exactly why those who attempt to hurt INFJs often find themselves caught in a web of consequences they never anticipated. INFJs have an unusually strong intuition. This gift allows them to sense intentions, read emotions, and see beneath the surface of people's actions. When someone tries to manipulate, deceive, or harm them, an INFJ often perceives the hidden agenda long before it unfolds. Even if they don't react immediately, they store the information quietly, and when the moment comes, they withdraw their trust, affection, or support. For many who thrive on exploiting others, this sudden loss of connection with the INFJ can feel like losing an irreplaceable treasure. The backfire begins in the silence of that absence, where the person who caused the harm suddenly realizes they've pushed away one of the very few people who could have truly understood and supported them. They also have a unique way of turning pain into growth. They do not allow hurt to define or destroy them. Instead, they take the experience, analyze it deeply, and extract wisdom from it. This transformation process makes them stronger, wiser, and more difficult to harm in the future. The individual who inflicted the pain may assume that their action has weakened the INFJ, but in reality, it has refined and empowered them. And in that empowerment, the tables turn. The hurt backfires because the INFJ rises from the ashes far more resilient than before, while the offender remains trapped in their own bitterness. INFJs tend to invest deeply in people, often giving more than they receive. Their compassion, kindness, and loyalty create bonds that carry immense weight in the lives of those around them. When someone chooses to betray or harm that loyalty, the ripple effect is powerful. The offender may discover that others do not condone the mistreatment of such a gentle soul, and they may face social isolation, mistrust, or reputational damage. The INFJ doesn't even need to lift a finger. The universe seems to conspire in their favor, and justice finds its way to the surface. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Master Course today. The link is in the description of this video. INFJs are also not naive about human nature. They may give people the benefit of the doubt at first, but once that trust is broken, they rarely grant full access again. This quiet form of self-protection is devastating for those who relied on their energy, insight, or companionship. To hurt an INFJ is to lose access to a source of rare, emotional depth and genuine care. The very person who once gave light, understanding, and encouragement will simply step away, leaving behind a void that can feel unbearable. The backfire lies in this sudden emptiness, where the offender realizes too late the irreplaceable value of what they've lost. Also, hurting an INFJ seems to create an unseen reaction. Because INFJs live with such alignment to their values and with such sincerity in their intentions, attempts to bring them down often seem to awaken forces of justice beyond the immediate. Call it karma, divine order, or the universe balancing itself. Those who target INFJs often find misfortune circling back to them in ways they did not expect. The INFJ, meanwhile, continues their quiet journey, often untouched by bitterness, carrying themselves with grace, while life itself ensures that lessons are taught to those who cross them. INFJs have the rare ability to outlast their adversaries. They are patient to a fault, and while others may act impulsively, an INFJ knows the power of waiting, watching, and conserving their energy. Their silence can be more devastating than any outburst, because it forces the offender to sit with themselves and confront the weight of their own actions. The backfire is often not immediate. It builds slowly in the conscience of the one who caused harm, until guilt, regret, or the consequences of their choices come crashing down. They embody a paradox of strength, hidden, and gentleness. People often mistake their warmth and kindness for weakness, only to discover that beneath their compassionate exterior lies a spine of steel. They will forgive, but they do not forget. They will love, but they will not tolerate abuse. They will walk away without drama, but the quiet finality of their departure is more devastating than any confrontation. The very qualities that made them vulnerable to hurt are the same qualities that ensure they rise above it and leave the offender behind to face their own emptiness. INFJs can see patterns in human behavior. They notice the inconsistencies, the subtle shifts in tone, the way someone's actions don't quite align with their words. This awareness makes it incredibly difficult to deceive them for long. Someone may think they've successfully tricked or manipulated an INFJ, but the INFJ is often steps ahead, observing and piecing together the truth in silence. When the INFJ eventually distances themselves or exposes the deception, the offender is left stunned, realizing that their schemes were transparent all along. The backfire is sharp because it not only reveals their intentions, but also leaves them stripped of credibility. INFJs have a natural influence that extends beyond their personal relationships. Many people are drawn to them, often inspired by their wisdom, empathy, or quiet strength. When someone tries to hurt them, it's not uncommon for others to rally around the INFJ, instinctively protecting and defending them. The offender may expect to isolate or undermine them, but instead, they find themselves outnumbered, exposed, and seen for who they truly are. The INFJ rarely has to say a word. The loyalty and respect they have earned speak on their behalf. In this way, the attempt to harm them often ends up damaging the perpetrator's own standing far more than the INFJ's. INFJs understand that not every battle is worth fighting immediately, and sometimes the wisest response is to wait. When they are wronged, they don't always retaliate, but their silence doesn't mean inaction. It means calculation. Over time, the truth inevitably surfaces, and the one who inflicted harm is caught in their own web of lies, contradictions, or poor choices. The INFJ's quiet endurance allows them to outlast storms that destroy others, and the backfire comes when the offender realizes that their attempt to break the INFJ only accelerated their own downfall. They also have a way of mirroring back to others the truth of who they are. Because they understand people at such a deep level, their presence can feel like a mirror reflecting both the light and the shadows within. When someone tries to wound them, it often awakens uncomfortable realizations in the offender about their own flaws, fears, and insecurities. The act of hurting an INFJ ends up confronting the person with themselves, forcing them to see what they try to project outward. This psychological backlash can be heavier than any external punishment because it comes from within, eating away at their conscience and self-image. INFJs often serve as catalysts for transformation in the lives of others. People who come into contact with them rarely leave unchanged because their energy, insight, and authenticity have a way of challenging others to grow. When someone chooses to mistreat or betray an INFJ, they are essentially rejecting a profound opportunity for transformation. The backfire is that they don't just lose a relationship, they lose the chance to evolve into a better version of themselves. The INFJ moves forward, still growing and deepening, while the offender remains stuck, haunted by what could have been. They are good at setting boundaries once they've been crossed. Initially, they may seem forgiving to a fault, allowing people to step into their world freely. But when harm is done, they recalibrate their boundaries with an almost surgical precision. The offender may still see the INFJ in their life, but they will never again have the same access, intimacy, or influence. This invisible wall is devastating because the person may not even realize how completely shut out they are until they desperately need the INFJ and discover they're no longer available. The backfire here is the painful recognition that their actions permanently altered a relationship that can never be restored. When someone hurts an INFJ, they do not waste energy on loud retaliation or constant defense. Instead, they fall silent, but that silence is never empty. It is loaded with meaning. It becomes a mirror in which the offender sees themselves more clearly than they ever wanted to. The absence of the INFJ's words, energy, or validation can haunt the one who caused harm. What was once a steady stream of warmth and encouragement becomes a deafening quiet, and that void often drives the offender to confront their own behavior far more forcefully than any angry outburst ever could. People often underestimate how deeply INFJs leave an impression. Even when someone tries to hurt them and succeeds in some temporary way, the memory of the INFJ lingers. Weeks, months, or even years later, those who wronged them find themselves replaying conversations, remembering the compassion that was once freely given, and contrasting it with their own cruelty. The backfire is slow but relentless, because the INFJ becomes a measuring stick against which the offender's conscience weighs heavily. This delayed guilt or regret is one of the most potent consequences of trying to hurt them. INFJs also thrive on personal reinvention. When faced with pain, they rarely remain stagnant. Instead, they channel that energy into creative growth, new passions, or deeper self-discovery. While the offender might expect them to remain broken, the opposite happens. The INFJ reinvents themselves in ways that make them stronger, more radiant, and even more untouchable. Watching them flourish after attempting to bring them down becomes a bitter pill for the offender to swallow. It exposes the futility of their efforts and reminds them that they only fueled the INFJ's transformation. They are natural truth seekers. Lies and betrayal might harm them temporarily, but truth has a way of gravitating toward them. Their sincerity draws clarity like a magnet, and eventually, falsehoods collapse under the weight of their own emptiness. Those who try to damage an INFJ's character often end up exposing their own dishonesty instead. The INFJ doesn't need to fight to clear their name. The truth surfaces in time, and the offender is left with the stain of their own deceit. In this way, the attempt to harm an INFJ's reputation often boomerangs and destroys the reputation of the one who tried to smear them. They have an almost prophetic sense of alignment with purpose. When someone tries to derail or harm them, the harm often redirects them into paths they were meant to walk all along. The betrayal or wound becomes the catalyst for their calling, pushing them closer to the work or the mission that truly fulfills them. For the offender, this is the ultimate backfire. Their attempt to break the INFJ becomes the very reason the INFJ steps into greater power, clarity, or destiny. They inadvertently push the INFJ into a higher version of themselves. There is also the psychological dissonance people feel after hurting an INFJ. Because INFJs rarely go out of their way to harm others, those who wound them often end up battling an uncomfortable inner truth. They destroyed something pure. This realization can weigh heavily over time, eroding their peace of mind. Even if they never admit it outwardly, they know deep inside that they lashed out at someone who only ever wanted to help, love, or support them. That inner conflict becomes its own punishment, an echo that keeps reverberating long after the incident is over. When someone tries to hurt INFJs, they often take the lesson and later use it to protect or guide others. They speak, write, or act from their experiences in ways that shield others from similar harm. The very attempt to wound them creates wisdom that they share with the world, expanding their impact. Meanwhile, the person who caused the harm becomes part of a cautionary tale, a silent antagonist in the INFJ's journey of influence. The irony is sharp. The effort to diminish the INFJ ends up amplifying their reach, their wisdom, and their power. INFJs live in alignment with their values and are not easily swayed by external pressure. When someone hurts them, instead of being corrupted or pulled down into bitterness, they lean even harder into their principles. This consistency often exposes the lack of integrity in the one who tried to harm them. Over time, the contrast becomes stark. While the INFJ remains grounded and authentic, the offender's instability and duplicity become glaringly obvious to everyone around them. What was meant to damage the INFJ ends up damaging the credibility of the one who struck first. They have a way of withdrawing their energy. When they are hurt, they don't just retreat physically. They withdraw the emotional current that once empowered the relationship. The absence of their energy leaves a kind of hollowness in the life of the offender. They may try to replace it with other people or distractions, but nothing quite fills that space, because few personalities can offer the same combination of empathy, insight, and unconditional support. The offender ends up haunted not by what they did, but by what they lost. They may not react immediately to being hurt, but they remember. This isn't a vengeful memory. It's a precise, almost photographic recollection of events, words, and emotional tones. When the truth eventually comes to light, as it often does, the INFJ is capable of recounting exactly what happened with a clarity that leaves no room for denial. This ability to remember and connect details can dismantle manipulations, lies, and distortions. Offenders who rely on gaslighting or twisting narratives find themselves undone, because the INFJ's long memory acts as a silent record that cannot be erased. While they feel pain deeply, they also recover in a way that transforms them into even more formidable individuals. Their suffering often becomes the soil for personal breakthroughs, creative insights, or spiritual revelations. For the one who tried to hurt them, watching the INFJ not only survive but thrive becomes a torment of its own. It's a living reminder that their attempted destruction only ended up contributing to the INFJ's strength and evolution. INFJs easily forgive, though not in the way many expect. Their forgiveness is not about condoning harmful behavior, but about freeing themselves from the chains of resentment. They release the bitterness and continue forward, unburdened, while the offender remains stuck in cycles of anger, guilt, or denial. The paradox here is striking. The INFJ heals and flourishes, while the person who caused harm becomes trapped in the very negativity they tried to project. The act of forgiveness turns into a shield, protecting the INFJ from long-term damage while leaving the offender vulnerable to their own unresolved darkness. Each hurt deepens their ability to connect, to understand, and to guide others better. In contrast, those who try to hurt them often find their social and emotional circles shrinking as people recognize the negativity radiating from them. The INFJ's influence expands while the offender's diminishes, creating an ironic reversal where harm intended to shrink the INFJ instead expands their reach and impact. Trying to hurt an INFJ is usually an exercise in futility. Their intuition warns them, their resilience transforms them, their absence punishes those who wrong them, and their silent strength ensures that justice is done in one form or another. The backfire is inevitable because INFJs do not merely survive harm, they transcend it. And when they do, the one who tried to hurt them is left with nothing but the echo of their own actions, and the haunting realization that they lost someone irreplaceable. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Mastery course today. The link is in the description of this video.